Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Well Played. I'm your host Bluetongue from around Sydney, Australia. I'm also joined by the hosts, hopping in from the hills. We have Harrow. How are you doing, Harrow?
I'm doing real well, thanks, Blue. Been playing lots more Old Republic and reading more Teen Titans. I nearly finished.
Sorry, Teen Titans?
Yeah, the DC comic.
Oh, right, yep. So it's sort of like X-Men meets Teen Angst?
More like Dawson's Creek. Oh man, I'm going to offend someone. More like Dawson's Creek meets Game of Thrones. They die badly. That's kind of why I like it.
Okay, well, as long as there's horrible deaths, that's cool. Hauling in from the sorry, yeah.
I could seriously explain it to you if you had a minute, but I might save that for another podcast.
Yep. We can do that some other episode. Balling in from the Blue Mountains, we have Cam. How are you doing, Cam?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm totally up for a total podcast entirely filled with discussion about Teen Titans and George Perez's artwork. But yeah, I think it's better off for another time. I'm doing well this week. My wife bought us tickets to episode 7 when it's finally released. So be lining up on the 17th of December. So I'm ridiculously spoiled this week.
Awesome. Is that playing locally, or is that like some special screening in the city?
Yeah, no, that's the local thing. So there's a midnight screening, I should say, in the city. But, you know, my wife, most of you know, works as a teacher. It doesn't really fit too well with her schedule to be tied for the students because she was watching Star Wars the night before. So most of them will.
Silly, all the students will be tied that day.
Exactly. Most of them probably will as well if their parents are raising them right. So. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Growing up from Gladesville, we have Bauxite. How are you, Baux?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Been playing a new game called Planet Base on Steam. It's basically SimCity on Mars, and then everyone suffocates. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's interesting
because we ran out of oxygen, and then also what are they called? The perchlorates. Accidentally left those on our uniforms, and everyone died. Oh.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like, you've run out of spare parts, so all of your solar panels break, and then the oxygen gets turned off, and then you die. Or you've run out of food, so you starve, so you stop repairing the solar panels, and then the oxygen gets turned off, and you die. So
it sounds like you've had a very successful game so far. And
It doesn't sound particularly forgiving.
It's becoming more and more forgiving. Like the first time I played, I died within like minutes. And now I'm up to maybe 4 or 5 hours before I actually die. So,
did you make your Sims take their helmets off? That sounds like something you'd do.
No, you can't do that, unfortunately. But you can build a circle of buildings around them and then connect all the buildings with little walkways, so they can't go anywhere, so they're trapped forever, and then they die. Because they run out of air.
I'm detecting a theme here.
It doesn't sound particularly challenging to kill your actual...
Yeah. Killing people is not the challenging part. So, yeah. But it's actually a lot of fun. So, yeah.
I actually, I saw a new game this week that I thought you might be interested also. You play a pharmaceutical company, and the game is researching and, publishing, for want of a better word, new pharmaceuticals, like antidepressants and pain meds and all that sort of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's sort of like this mix between theme hospital and some sort of research thing where you're trying to constantly find new ingredients and stuff. But
is there a douchebag mode where you can take an AIDS medication and jack up the price 7,000%, or is that in the expansion?
No, that's in the American version.
How much can you sell your soul for? That seems like a commodity you're describing.
So if you do it this way, this many people die. Well, do we make more money like that? Yes, you do. Okay, let's kill people.
So I'm guessing it's a little bit like Game Dev Tycoon or something like
that?
A
little along those lines, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely along that theme. Like I said, sort of theme hospital meets theme park meets some sort of crazy, and you're also trying to refine your pills as you make them and all that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so how you doing?
I am really good today. I've had an excellent day. It's been very, very productive.
Did anything interesting or exciting happen at all?
Yes. So at about 2:00 this afternoon, I finally progressed all the way from rank 25 all the way to the end of rank 1 over the course of about 100 to 150 games of Hearthstone. And I finally cracked rank 1 and I hit legend rank, which is like a pretty high achievement for Hearthstone. It's sort of the top 0.1% kind of thing of players who can get that rank. And yeah, finally all the hard work that I'd been putting in this month had finally paid off. It was very satisfying.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I get to add some applause in post, yeah.
But there has actually been other exciting things happening for me of late, gaming-wise. I got to go down to visit the Blizzard office in Sydney last weekend. It was actually really good. I really enjoyed myself there. I got to meet Pig, who's a StarCraft 2 announcer / pro player, like semi-pro player. He's more known for his announcing than his playing. He was really nice. Really got along well with him. And
I'm sorry. How hard can it be to be a StarCraft commentator? Oh, player 2's being a Zerg. Oh, and he's doing the patented asshole Zerg rush tactic. Didn't see that coming.
I think you'd be quite surprised, Harrow. Like,
it's kind of like putting a podcast together. You think it's going to be easy, but...
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of how many... If I was a commentator, it'd be how many derogative ways I could come up with describing Protoss nipple chanting or Zerg rushing.
Oh, right. No, like, so they commentate the pro games, and you know, like, how the pros have, something crazy, like 300 APM.
Yep.
They are constantly like bouncing around the map and sort of highlighting really key points in the game and like discussing strategies and like when attacks will come and if like yeah they're really really good. They make it an entirely different beast because if I was just sitting there watching games I don't really get it. Like I don't really understand all the thought and strategy that's gone into it, whereas these guys do a fantastic job of actually explaining that stuff and they make it 100% more interesting.
Bad commentary can sink the viewer's experience of this kind of thing. So,
yeah,
that's very,
very
his
true.
name. Pig was quite nice then. And how was? I mean, what did you do while there? What was the attraction at the headquarters?
So it was actually a competition that I won, and it was basically Blizzard promoting their latest sort of StarCraft 2 expansion called Legacy of the Void.
Yep.
And the new play mode that they've got for that is called Archon mode, and it's essentially 2 players can play as 1 player. So there's only 2 bases on the map, but there might be 4 players playing, and you work together as a team to kind of execute your strategy or whatever. It is kind of good. It's really good in the scenario where, just say you've got 2 good players and 2 crap players. If you split up the good players, it gives the crap players someone to play with and still get enjoyment out of the game without having all that major skill discrepancy that would be happening.
Or alternatively, you can put the 2 good players on the same team and actually like completely mop the floor with the bad guys.
Yeah, so that would be one way to do it, and it doesn't sound particularly appealing to me. It's sort of like, actually, it's basically like doubles tennis. It's sort of, tennis is a great game and it's really good played one-on-one kind of thing, but when, like, they've basically introduced the ability to actually have the second player on each team kind of thing. So you're still playing the same ball, you're still playing, like, the same strategies and teams, and you still have the same stuff that's available to you. It's just a bit more, interesting. So got to meet those guys, got to meet Igaz, who's a pro StarCraft player from Australia. He's got like a significant chunk of esports winnings and stuff like that. And I also got to meet the Blizzard Big Boss community manager, who was out from the US. She was really nice. It was just good fun. It was a good night out, and I got to drink other people's beer and eat their food, which is even better.
Always good.
Yeah. So, firstly, as a quick explanation of what the podcast is about, Well Played is about sharing comic books, graphic novels, movies, TV shows, computer games, board games, and MMA and wrestling we enjoy with our listeners. For those of you who are already aware of the subjects, hopefully we can give you all a deeper insight into what it's about. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So, in 2013, the game that we are going to discuss got announced, and it got published into a beta form. And a whole bunch of beta keys got given out, usually to like known Twitch streamers and stuff like that. And they became some of like the hottest commodities on the internet, with them like being sold on eBay for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, because Blizzard had finally made its entry into the world of collectible card games. So they'd previously had the license sold to a physical collectible card game, but they basically took that model and then put it on the internet and made it more a like it's still collectible, but you can't trade your cards. So it's sort of like an environment that they pre-made. You go around collecting all the bits that you need, and then you battle with other players. So Hearthstone later that year got released to more or less the general public beta. I think they ended up doing something crazy, like about 3 million beta keys out, and that still wasn't enough. There was still a huge demand for people to play this game. I was lucky enough to get it just before I went over to BlizzCon, and while I was over there, I got to see like some of the first tournaments and the beginnings of the Hearthstone scene sort of make way kind of thing, and sort of breaking the trail and coming up with the different formats and stuff like that. But now it's all sort of settled down into its general release schedule, and yeah, so the first game of the week is Hearthstone. So have you guys played this yet?
May I ask a quick question? You were saying this was Blizzard's first move into the collectible card game thing, but if I remember, was once told a story that didn't World of Warcraft try to have a collectible card game? No one played it, and then they made it so if you played the game, you could win a chance to beta test whatever the latest WoW expansion was. That was the only way they got them to play.
Not quite. So there was. Like I said, I was just they'd given their license to another company, whose name escapes me.
Is it Cryptozoic?
That sounds like it was probably it.
Yeah.
And they had created a collectible card game based around the World of Warcraft sort of theme. But basically that it wasn't hugely popular. It certainly wasn't competitive with the really big names in there, like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that. So they scrapped the license for that and developed Hearthstone. And it's basically it's a similar game but in computerized form. But the game itself is different, and obviously there's like trading and no trading and stuff like that. It's all about just collecting yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so have you played it this week at all, Harrow?
No. You're going to try and convince me to play it, I think.
Okay, yep, sort of.
What else?
What about you, Bauxite? Have you played it yet?
I haven't played it this week. I've been a bit busy.
Yep.
But yeah, I've definitely played it. I've got up to about rank 9, I think, is my best.
Yep.
I don't actually. I wish I had more time to get really, really good. Because my collection is pretty large, mainly because as a freemium game, I have spent money on it. I think all up I've spent about $150.
Okay.
But I've got a pretty sizable collection of cards, and it's something I enjoy to do while watching a movie with the wife or something on the iPad or something like that. So, yeah.
Quality time like that.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, she's on her phone, and we're both watching the TV, ostensibly. So, yeah.
So I've probably spent about $130, I think, all up on it. So that was one release of like one massive bunch of packs for one of the expansions, one of the extra character portraits, and the pre-release packs for the Grand Tournament, which was the latest expansion for it. So, in terms of how many times put it this way, in terms of hours versus dollars spent, do you feel like it's a good value game, Bauxite?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I've played over 200 games with my hunter, and probably about as many with all the other classes combined. So I think maybe at 5 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game, it's a lot of hours.
That is a lot of hours, yes.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a certain gambler's joy in terms of opening up those card packs and, you know, finding that you got a rare one. You know, it feels good.
Yeah. Like, they've done a really good job of, like, commentating you actually opening the card packs. Like, as you're opening, the innkeeper, like, yells out how exciting it is when, like, he almost wets himself when you get, like, a golden legendary card, which is, like, a foil mythic rare for Magic players.
I think what you're kind of hitting on there too is one of the other strengths I noticed about it, which is the sound is very good. The voice acting in this one is quite good. They've done a very good job with all the presentation aspects of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the artwork that goes into it, I think, is just awesome. I really have always loved the sort of cartoony come real worldy feel that that Blizzard brings to that sort of stuff. And the actual, like, content of the cards and stuff like that. That said, all that aside, that's all has to be built on a solid basis for a solid card game. And I think they've done a really, really good job of implementing and refining the existing sort of framework that a lot of collectible card games fall into. So, Harrow, have you played any other CCGs?
Bauxite got me onto Magic the Gathering a number of years ago, but that's about it, I believe. I played the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game when I was a much younger man, but yeah.
Yep.
That's it, collectible card games and me.
So usually those games go along with resources. I know Magic has lands. Does Dragon Ball Z have that sort of stuff as well?
Not really, because I've only played, I think, version 1. It had 3 ways it's got a couple of, you got 3 ways you can win, or 4 ways you can win, and it doesn't really have a resource. You just shape your deck around the way you're trying to win. So you can win by powering up faster than your opponent, you can win by getting all the Dragon Balls, or you can win by just pounding your opponent into oblivion.
Okay.
So, yeah, but there's not real... Power, I suppose, would be a resource, because if you're trying to beat your opponent down, you need to power up to do damage. You got to power up to do spend power to do damage, but can't let it get too low, otherwise your opponent will beat you. It was a weird mechanic.
Okay. So, I know Magic, like I was saying with Magic, the land is your resource, and unless you draw the appropriate numbers and quantities and colours of land in your opening hand or whatever, then you're probably going to be looking at doing a mulligan to redraw, and be at a disadvantage for the rest of the game. One of the things I really like about this game is that the mechanics work because of it actually being online. So now, instead of having to keep track of everything that's happening on the board, the computer essentially calculates all the damage and stuff like that is done for you. And it also lets them do other really exciting, interesting stuff, like random damage across the board and that sort of thing, whereas previously, like changing turn times and sort of mucking around with the very fundamentals of the game, which is sometimes difficult to try and implement in a CCG type environment. So, Cam, have you played it all this week, or?
I haven't hit up Hearthstone for a long time, so
okay.
Backstory here, Bluetongue actually put this one on my now struggling Apple Mac laptop, and yeah, like I've kind of I found that it runs really well on that. So my MacBook Pro doesn't run a whole lot. It runs this really well, and I haven't really touched it for a little while. It's probably been about a few months here. One of those things where I can see myself investing a lot of time and, you know, We've heard about how people spend $150 pretty easily, but very much a value for money thing here as far as, being a freemium game. Blizzard have managed that very well from what little I've played of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. So it's possible to play competitive decks that are free. They're literally free to create. And there are many really famous players that have taken these most basic of decks all the way up to legendary rank, which is the highest there is. They're not super competitive at the super high ranks, but if you play them well, you can obviously get ahead.
I'm a collectible card game noob. I've played a little bit of Magic and this kind of thing, but what I found was the you can do that kind of thing with it, but I guess I don't know how you'd put it, the difficulty curve or maybe the entrance ceiling or whatever is relatively low. Like you can be a noob and play this well, would be my observation. Would you agree with that?
Yes. The noobs that play well usually have a background in CCGs. That said, it's pretty forgiving in terms of the people that you'll be stacked up against at the start are generally not like the most spectacular of players. They do a relatively good job of distributing the really high ranking players into different sort of areas of the ladder so that you're not obviously beating up noobs for the first, 20 games. Yeah. So, but that said, there has been complaints along those lines. So, I'm trying to think of a good analogy with a game that you guys would be aware of. And the only one I can think of is StarCraft, that has like an ongoing ladder sort of tournament scene. And, you advance from like leagues. So there's Bronze League, Silver League, Gold League, Diamond League, Grandmaster League. And then there's like the pro scene above that. And it's like basically taking those leagues and mashing them all together at the start of each month so that the Grandmasters are playing people from like the Silver League and stuff, which that's not very forgiving. And that, I'm sure, has led to some sort of unpleasant experiences from people.
Can you imagine the planning session where people came up with that idea too of, let's meld these leagues and see it end in anything other than a bloodbath.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what happens. Oh, look, they got slaughtered again. So the game itself's played by either one or two players. There is a couple of different modes. There's Tavern Brawl, which is sort of like a super easy, casual kind of way to just earn some card packs each week and play with like funky rules. They muck around with the way it's played each week, which gives it a bit more replayability there. There's 9 different classes, which is interesting. So Magic has the 5 different colours, and then you can blend your colours based on whatever deck or whatever you're trying to achieve with your deck. And Hearthstone, by comparison, has fairly distinct themes along each of the different classes. And they've done a really good job of making those still enjoyable, which is nice. Bauxite, what do you think about the different classes? How do you feel that they're balanced?
Well, I think they're completely unbalanced, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
Hunter is the only one worth playing. All the other ones are crap.
I'm sensing a note of bias in your opinion on this.
Oh, come on. You think so? Yeah, okay, maybe a little bit. Look, the classes generally are very well balanced. I personally prefer Hunter, although I do play a lot of Warlock as well. I like the theme of Hunter a lot, but the playstyle of Warlock really does seem to fit with my playstyle as well, which is basically hurting yourself in order to get ahead.
Yeah. It's somewhat similar to the black color in Magic.
Yeah. So it's stop hitting yourself color. I quite like it. But yeah, look, there will be periods of time where pretty much one class will dominate with just the, deck that happens to be the flavor of the week. And, 2 or 3 weeks later, it'll be another completely different class. I don't think there's any class that hasn't had its moment where, maybe Shaman?
Yeah, Shaman. Shaman's the exception. Poor Shaman.
Yeah, even though they did have a moment at the beginning of the last expansion where, the Totem Shaman deck seemed to be doing very, very well.
Yeah, like, it was solid.
That Walrus card, yeah.
I think it may make a re-entry. What they've recently done is just killed one of the deck archetypes, called Patron Warrior. And that's all about just drawing mass amounts of cards till you get exactly the stuff you need. And then once you've got what you need, you do, like, stupid amounts of damage to your opponents. It's, a really frustrating deck to play against because you think you've almost won and then you just lose in one turn.
So I take it that the reason they removed that was for the purpose of balancing the game?
I think so. Basically, the existence of that deck is sort of in of itself, like, it's super punishing to paladins and shamans. Both of those classes just absolutely get smashed by that sort of self-replicating kind of card which it can't deal with en masse. And yeah, so basically they killed that deck to make everything else a bit easier to sort of bring up to speed, I think. Like, there's still a warrior deck which it can play, called it's not really called anything, it's just your basic control warrior, which is all about just controlling the board. But it's I'd say that's the only class that's really been punished, though. Everything else has got a really good sort of showing. Like, Dragon Priest is a thing at the moment. That said, there seems to be some go-tos. So in my experience over the last 150 games that I've played this month, I was playing a Druid deck, a Rush Druid deck, which wasn't that common. There was a really super common Tempo Mage deck. There was a Secret Paladin deck, which is just everywhere. It is really, really common to be versing that one. There is the Control Warrior. There was a couple of Patron Warriors who just steamrolled me, which was very frustrating. And then there was a few Warlocks and stuff like that. So the Warlock has had an archetype called a Handlock, which has been sort of in existence since the start of the game. And that's all about sort of, again, hurting yourself, creating a massive hand, and then using the sheer quantity of cards that you've got in your hand to your own advantage. Yeah, that's a very solid deck too. So, as I think we've all elaborated, for those of us who play all this sort of stuff regularly, there is a lot of replayability in the game. I have been perfectly happy to spend the amount of money that I have spent on it. I still actually am intending on spending more over the coming few months and stuff like that. Maybe, hopefully there'll be some discounts during Black Friday or something. That'd be nice. But what do you guys think? Like, this particular type of game, does it? Are you just seeing converts to the whole freemium archetype here, or are you thinking of this as actually being something better and different?
I think compared to other freemium games, there's a big difference between what Hearthstone does and what a lot of other games do. As pointed out very, very well in the South Park episode, Freemium Isn't Free, a lot of freemium games just make you pay to avoid waiting to do the next thing, which is basically, clicking a thing to get a resource. Whereas in Hearthstone there is an actually legitimate strategy game there. The game itself is incredibly good, and the fact that it's offered free is great. It's got the same depth that Magic the Gathering has. It's a lot more accessible, and the cards, it doesn't have 15,000 cards yet, but
it'll get there one day.
Yeah, probably. So look, I think in terms of, and you don't actually ever pay to keep playing. It never locks you out. You can play as much as you want to. What you pay for is basically shortcutting to get different or better cards, which you can get by recycling the cards you've already got.
Or just playing really well. So there's another play mode called Arena, which is essentially like a drafting type game, where you pick a whole bunch of cards out of groups of 3. So you get 90 choices, and you get to choose 30 cards out of those 90. And at the end, if you've won a certain number of games, or 7 games, you get the money that you spent to get into the arena back. And I'm not saying cash money, I'm saying gold, in-game gold, although you can spend cash as well. And you always get a pack as well, so it's not like it's a complete waste of time. So there is that means to try and sort of buffer your collection if you're just a super keen player. Most of the people who wanted to do that have already done so, though. So, all right.
I was going to ask from, you mentioned that freemium isn't free episode from South Park. I watched that, I think a great episode, but they talk about triggers and praise points, I think they call it. You were describing when you buy a pack of cards, all the lights flicker and all the exciting sound make, like a pokie machine would in that sort of a context. Did you watch the episode?
Yep, I've seen that. So the stuff you're describing is present in the game. So there is stuff in there which sort of leans down that line. So when you get a legendary card, it like explodes in a supernova of orange light as the announcer basically like yells and screams excitedly for you that you just got a new legendary card. And then it also announces on your friends list on Battle.net that you just opened a legendary card. Everyone goes, "Wow, that's fantastic! Congratulations!" It's actually tons of fun. It's sort of like opening normal card packs in a similar way and pulling that amazing mythic that you never expected to get. So when you win a game, it explodes in like a screen full of fireworks, and it shows you how far you progressed on to the next level, where you start unlocking golden cards and like fancy foils, for those of you who refer to them as that. And it's sort of encouraging you to continue playing. But at the same time, you don't have to pay for the actual opening of the packs unless you want to, and you don't have to actually pay for the winning, or you can't pay for the winning of the game. There's no, you pay and you suddenly just have a better deck than everyone else.
You pay and you get 5 life back or something like that.
No, nothing like that. You basically, you create your deck, and then that's what you're playing with. So if like you're paying for the ability to play a different deck, essentially, if you want to like get more cards for your deck or get different things. There's also ways to craft specific cards, so you're not stuck just opening buckets and buckets of packs waiting for like a specific card that you need to fill out a deck. And essentially, once you've got your collection, then you play as much as you want and you can make any deck that you want. So, yeah, it's, I think, a thoroughly enjoyable game. There are many Twitch streamers and, podcasts and stuff like that about it. So, for those of you who enjoy such things, check out The Angry Chicken. That's by, Garrett Dills and Jocelyn Moffat. They do a great job of sort of commentating on stuff that happens in that game from week to week. And also, if you want to actually watch pros to play and see how they play the game, there's a massive following for Hearthstone on Twitch. Just check those guys out. Savage is probably one of the most famous players who constantly gets in there to play and try out new things, and very, very, very extremely good player. Forson's another one. Though that said, some of the chat rooms for these guys can be really, really toxic. So just be aware. Excellent.
Okay. So, I think the point I was going to with my question is don't make a mistake that this isn't some great free game. This is still a freemium game. It still has the triggers. It still gets excited when you pay money. It still reminds you when there's new content available you could spend money on. And I'm guessing when you're not in a game, you're within 3 clicks of making a purchase at any time or something like that?
I guess you would be, yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna call crap on that.
Okay.
Look, there are plenty of games in the world where there's explosions of fireworks and lightning when you level up.
Yeah.
The games that you've legitimately paid for, when you receive an epic item in games like Diablo, that you are rewarded with, the poker machine lights and flashes. There are plenty of games that use these sorts of things to make you keep playing because they're enjoyable. because that's something that the human mind actually enjoys seeing. A nice spell effect, and, these sorts of things. It's not any different from Magic the Gathering, where you get rares and foils, and they have, the rarer cards have better art sometimes, or, a different symbol that is actually enjoyable. And yeah, there is occasionally new content. I think there's been 2 expansions in the last, couple of years. You're not, on the phone, it doesn't constantly remind you that, hey, you haven't played in a little while, do you want to play? I never get push notifications from it at all.
No, yeah. They've made it very unintrusive in that sense.
That's good, that's good.
In terms of the rewards for paying money, yeah, opening a card pack is something you can use to pay with in-game gold, or you can use to pay money for it, and it's exactly the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And there is actually very little reward that you can get with money that you cannot get just simply by playing the game.
But we're talking playing a reasonable amount of time, not playing months worth.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you can build any deck with a very moderate amount of playing. The issue is whether you will be able to have all the decks with a moderate amount of playing. But yeah, that's probably not possible. You can't have access to every single card with a moderate amount of playing. But you know what? If you're not going to invest time and you're not going to invest money, do you really deserve to be having all of the things? Because I don't know any games that offer you, hey, yeah, you got to the last level of the game and you beat the big boss and you explored all the areas without you investing something.
Just like to say for my listeners, when I admitted to playing Star Wars The Old Republic, which is also a freemium game, this isn't me on my high horse. I'm genuinely curious as to how intrusive this game is on your life. But what you're saying, it's actually quite tame by comparison to others.
Oh, absolutely. I will play maybe 1 or 2, 10-minute games a week.
Yep.
And, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll play, 20 or 30 games in an evening when I feel like it. Compared to other free, inverted commas, games that I play on my phone, this is not something that really takes over my life or intrudes at all.
I mean, really here, one of the other options that they would have is, if they don't require that kind of financial investment, put ads in the thing, advertise, make it so that you can sign up for free and be bombarded from those things. What's preferable in this case? Is it preferable that you have to shell out a little bit if you want to get the most out of it, or are you guys willing to have those ads in your face every now and then?
There is no ads in this whatsoever.
None, and that's the direction they've gone down. I think I can think of one other game which went the complete opposite direction for their free so-called version, which is called Skiing Yeti Mountain. Cheap plug here, by Featherweight Games, who have some guys originally from the Blue Mountains. They've made a humorous kind of thing out of the ads in the game. They think it's better actually if you get the free version because they've incorporated the ads into the satire of the game. But that's the alternative. I don't know quite what I think of that versus paying for it.
Yeah, if they did put ads in the game, this would really detract from the whole layout of it. And the actual creation of it. They've gone to the nth degree to create a really effective, pretty user interface. To that extent, they're certainly not willing to compromise, even just their interface in terms of how it's implemented and stuff like that, let alone throwing random ads for various products into their own game. There's no way they do that. They've got, I think, at least unusually, for a gaming company, they've got a fair bit of integrity from Blizzard, which is why they've got such a big following, I think.
Whole nother discussion there to have about what it means to have that qualifier of, for a gaming company, they've got a lot of integrity. But yeah, again, topic for another day.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So, if you want to check out Hearthstone, it's just free online. Go and download it, play through the little tutorials that they have at the start. Again, more effort's gone into that. There's still some great presentation and just the voice acting, and it's fantastic. The only stuff that is locked behind a cache barrier is some card backs, and some character portraits, and they will not change the effective way that you play the game whatsoever. So
I don't think that's true. When I bought my character portrait, which had the much better looking hunter with the cool audio, I found that my skill level increased at least 2.5 times. So.
Does this new portrait look like a Super Saiyan or something?
It is a female.
Its power
elf.
level is over 9,000.
Yeah, so look, Hearthstone's available on iOS, Android, Windows, Mac. I don't know about Windows Phone, possibly.
DOS.
Unix, Linux, yep.
Yeah. So
it's very, very widely available.
yeah. So yeah.
I think if you have a very, older than an iPhone 5, you could be in a little bit of trouble. How do you go with your iPhone 4, Blue?
I went and downloaded it, and I was really excited to actually have it on my phone finally, and then it said no. So
right.
Yeah, don't even bother downloading it if you've got an iPhone 4.
Well, it worked fine on my 5, and it works beautifully on my 6.
Yeah, I just play it on my PC, so yeah, like for a game which is, I guess, not very demanding, it's it does a great job of like being available across many platforms and stuff like that. And I still want to play it despite not using up the complete processing power of my PC and everything else. Cool.
Okay. I think the only thing that stopped me from really getting into it is that it can only be 1 or 2 player. I mean, Bauxite, you could attest to this. How often do we just play Magic the Gathering with the 2 of us? It's always a group.
Yeah, well, I reckon about half the time we'll play just you and me, or at least 2-player games. I think Magic is a better game shared amongst more people when you're not taking it super competitively seriously. But it does become a little bit of a kingmaker game. What I would really like Hearthstone to do is start like raiding, where it's multiple players against one NPC boss.
Okay.
That'd be really cool. And there has been a little bit of talk around that, but nothing confirmed by Blizzard devs, I don't think.
Yeah, it's something they implemented in the actual collectible card game, the one that got discontinued.
Yep.
And that was actually really clever. They made these decks that were sort of one person plays this sort of overpowered super deck that was sort of pre-created. Everyone else just played their normal decks against it, and that was their way of sort of letting multiple players play against one sort of particularly challenging deck or whatever.
Yep. Okay.
So I can certainly see them doing something like that in the future, like letting you go into like a group of 2 or 3 to play against a particularly tough or challenging boss. Although I'm sure it'll be really tough to balance, because as soon as you start talking about multiple classes on the same side, then suddenly everything can go a bit stupid, I think.
Yeah, that being said, they have done the Tavern Brawl, and I don't think they really try and balance that.
No, that's very true. The Tavern Brawl is just super casual. Just get some free cards. In fact, like you if you get 1 win like in Tavern Brawl per week, then you get a free pack of cards, which is awesome. So I always make sure I always get my 1 win. But they're actually taking that out, so it's just 1 game that you've played that gives you the free pack each week now. So there's I guess there's more and less incentive to actually just go into a Tavern Brawl.
Yeah, I quite enjoy the Tavern Brawl, just to do something that's completely stupidly crazy. Like, the 1 week they had this, there's a card called Web Spinner, which is just this 1 mana cost first turn spider. It's one of the weakest cards in the game, just based on stats. Mm-hmm. But when it dies, you get a random beast card put into your hand. So everyone's decks was just 100% these spiders. And so you'd play it, you'd let your spiders die, and you'd get, I don't know, maybe a giant 9/9 dinosaur, or, maybe something completely stupid like a parrot.
Or you got another web spinner out of your web spinner.
Yeah, that happened a couple of times to me. I was like, yeah.
Guess I'll just keep playing them till I don't get that. Yeah, good times. Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of other formats as well. Like, sometimes they'll let you play as bosses. So the very first one they did was like Ragnaros versus Nefarian, and each of the decks were sort of pre-constructed with these crazily overpowered cards and stuff like that in them. That was really good.
There's also the what do you call it? The single player NPC game where you're fighting, raiding content.
Yep. So that's it. That's called the adventure mode.
Adventure mode. That's it. Yeah.
Yep. As opposed to Adventure Time. The mode is actually going through and fighting a series of bosses. I think there's about 12 in each raid. You can pay for each wing with real cash, or you can pay for it with gold. So you just need to save up your gold before you can go and do it. And then at the end of each wing, you unlock a bunch of cards, which is, great. I actually think that way of releasing the cards has been so much more satisfying than the mass card packs and expansions of Goblins and Gnomes and the Argent Tournament. What did you think, Bauxite?
Look, I paid real money for all of those adventure modes. Because I'm not very good at saving, unfortunately. As soon as I tend to get any gold, I tend to spend it immediately on card packs. So that was a bit unfortunate. But I really enjoyed those. You'd fight interesting, challenging bosses where you'd need to make decks that were... you wouldn't play them competitively because they were geared towards a very, very particular play style. Like, there'd be one boss who'd just wipe out all your creatures every turn. So you needed to make a deck that had creatures that had something called Death Rattle. So when they died, a good thing happened. Or you would play just a heap of spells. And these were decks that were just... it's like solving a puzzle, I guess, with the cards and resources you've got in front of you.
And there's two different difficulty modes as well. So unlocking the cards, you just do it on normal. But you can do it on Heroic as well. And Heroic is just brutal. Like, you're like... Really? That seems so unbalanced. And they weren't trying to balance it. They were just trying to make it challenging for everyone who played it. So you wouldn't just ruffle stomp it. Yeah. I really enjoyed those the adventures. I think we're due for another one, so it'll probably get announced at BlizzCon, which will be in about 3 weeks' time from now. So that'll be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. All right. So moving on.
Oh, yes. I believe our second topic tonight is Blacklist. I believe the show's from the NBC, came out last year, currently on season 2. I've been really enjoying it. I suppose, brief description, FBI's most wanted man hands himself in and tells the FBI, if you work with me, I'll point you to the really bad guys. It's about I enjoy it because it's about how the criminal underworld interacts with each other. Really good show. Have you guys seen it?
Have seen it and loved it, quite frankly. I'm on the second season at the moment, and this was one of those shows that kind of someone else put me onto it. My wife watched it for the first half season, I guess, and kind of a lot of people were talking to me about how great this show was, and I was kind of like, well, really? That's the premise? They're just after these terrorists? That doesn't sound like the best show just off the face of it. If I'm going to spend all this time investing in it, I'm not so sure about it, but it's much better than any description really does justice, I think.
Yep. So I'm about halfway through the second season at the moment.
I think season 2 is only up to at the time of this podcast. They're only up to episode 3 in the second season.
I've got it on Netflix, so there's like 22 episodes, I think, in the second season.
I think they're on the third season, or they're about
they're on the third season.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
They're episode 5.
There's also a comic book series that takes place between the first and second series that's also worth a look. But I think you were just kind of mentioning the Bluetongue. You've kind of been working through the Netflix showing of this, I guess.
I was saying, so about halfway through the second season at the moment. I find it really enjoyable. I love the actual show, and I love the content. I love the creative things that they actually investigate. So rather than just being CSI Miami, where a murder serial killer is out there every single week, they actually are investigating many, many different varieties of crime and many different varieties of criminal. I think that's a certainly meritorious point to it. What do you think, Bauxite?
Look, it's very episodic, in some ways. There's always a little bit of a taste of the grander story in each episode, but a lot of the time I find that they're dealing with, one serial killer who has this weird kink, and, they deal with that, and then the episode's over, which is fine. I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of episodic series, though. I do like my big story arcs. So,
there is something of an arc to this. There are threads throughout, but yeah.
Yeah, I like my... Yeah. I guess I'd prefer the episodes that really deal with the arc more than just a little bit of a detour. But even that said, it is very well done.
Yeah. I thoroughly agree with you in that. Like, one of my favourite scenes from this has been when after a certain incident happens involving the main character, he basically goes around and just takes revenge on every single person involved in that whole incident, and it's done to as a montage to "The Man Comes Around" by Johnny Cash, which is an amazingly good song. I thought that was just fantastic.
Are you up to date on it, Bauxite? Because you were talking about not wanting it so episodic. Are you, whatever we're up to in season 3?
Yeah, I'm up to the second episode of season 3.
Because that's what I've actually found. I think the last 2 episodes of season 2 and the first 2 episodes of season 3 it wasn't episodic. It was this really good story, which I've absolutely loved and rewatched. The most recent episodes have gone back to episodic, but yeah, I think the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, I'm guessing you would have loved, or am I overthinking this?
No, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask you guys one question for this show. If James Spader wasn't in it, would you still watch it?
Personally, no. Yeah, no, that would not be the case. I would not watch it.
You'd have to get someone just as charismatic in there, though. I think I would if they got someone really interesting in there. What's the guy that plays Loki? Tom Hiddleston? That'd be cool.
Yeah, even then, I just think that sort of... I mean, Spader's been working in Hollywood for how many decades now, and...
Longer than we've been alive.
Yeah.
At least half a decade.
Yeah. So, watching him chew scenery in this, I kind of think... I mean, he's hit... I don't know if I'd say he's hit and miss. It depends on the quality of his kind of material. Like, unlike a lot of people, I actually didn't think he was so wonderful as Ultron in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
It's not that he did a bad job, it's just everyone was raving about how amazing he was, and the Ultron character is terrifying. I don't think he brought that with him. But certainly here, I think that sort of, in this case, as far as the Blacklist goes, they're chewing on scenery, plays this character that is a nihilist who really is just kind of here for the enjoyment of life and has all these people wrapped around his finger. And I think that it's kind of like seeing anyone else play Tony Stark. Someone other than Robert Downey Jr. could do it. I can't see anyone else playing this character. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. I think I'd be really, really, really disinclined to actually try and watch someone else in the role. Like, I can think of a few people who might suit. So RDA might be a good example. He might fit in there if you did, if you felt inclined to go back into the TV scene.
Yeah.
William Shatner might fit in there if you want to sort of reunite the whole. What was that?
Boston Legal team.
Boston Legal, yeah. And there's certain people I'd certainly like to see on the show. So just off the top of my head, I reckon Patrick Stewart would make a really, really good sort of one-off kind of visitor to the show. That'd be so much fun.
I don't know if anyone here has seen Patrick Stewart in Extras.
I've not.
Totally perverted version of himself, and just him in playing a similar enough role to that in this so he could bounce off James Spader's character would be funny.
I saw him in a YouTube clip of The Tonight Show with John Oliver. Yeah, have you guys seen that?
So was that I've lost the thread of what it was called, the segment. But yeah.
So they cut to who they said was John Oliver, and it was Patrick Stewart wearing a wig, and he did his like a thespian presentation of what they were about to talk about, and it was hilarious. It was really, really good. He also does voices for stuff like Family Guy and other bits and pieces, so I could totally see him doing something like that. It'd be good. So
I would love to see Patrick Stewart play a villain in something like Blacklist. That would be crazy good.
Yeah, it's like as for people who haven't actually seen it yet, Alan Alda from MASH, as in Hawkeye from MASH, is also one of the major characters in the story.
I prefer to think of him as Senator Arnold Vinnick from The West Wing, but yeah, he's been in Hollywood probably for 900 years, as has I think he's one of these actors who is good in everything, and he's brilliant in this as well.
Yeah. I thoroughly agree there. He did a fantastic job.
Now, I understand you're a big fan of The West Wing, Bluetongue.
That's absolutely correct. I think my wife and I watched it in 1 month, end to end. Yeah.
My favourite parts of The West Wing are usually when there's some sort of discussion taking place by people in suits standing in offices or walking down corridors. I really get a lot out of those.
Well, my personal favorite part of like Hearthstone is when cards are collected and used in a game, and also in acting in movies in general, when actors use dialogue in a scene and use their inflection to get the more emotion and feeling across.
I like it when actors use words in order to convey messages.
Sorry, I don't know anyone. Back to the extras theme for a second. Episode where who played Gandalf and Magneto? So Ian McKellen's on there, and he's like in extras, everyone plays a whacked out version of themselves, and he's like, "Oh, what I want you to do on this show is to act. So I want you to read this script and memorize those lines and pretend that that's you." Yeah, I think that you can reduce. My point is, you can reduce anything down to those core elements and smash it that way. But
yeah,
I mean, that's what the magic of the show. It was quite well written for its own right.
Yeah, it feels a little bit too lovey-dovey. Whereas House of Cards is like, I watched that and I enjoy it. It's very sort of an unforgiving kind of there's this really strong undercurrent of maliciousness to the whole sort of environment, which I feel like is probably what it would be more like in real life. Whereas West Wing strikes me as a really, like, it's just sort of airy-fairy. It's sort of like the I don't know what would be a good example, like the prettied up version of what people perceive real life in the White House to be.
So John Trudeau just won office in Canada, and his whole speech was something ripped from the pages of the West Wing scripts. About optimism and stuff like this. I think you're just looking at like the days and nights of how you perceive these things. West Wing is the hope, the optimism. House of Cards is dark and bleak. I love both of them because both of them ring true in different ways. Blacklist, tonally speaking, where do you think that fits? Where would you place that? Like, if people want an idea of when they're watching this, is it dark? Is it light? Where would you place that on a continuum?
I feel like it's sitting, like, it has its dark moments, but generally speaking, the show is quite light. You never get to an end of the episode and just go, oh, wow, I can't believe all that just happened. I'm feeling, like, emotionally overwrought like you would in Game of Thrones. Yeah.
No, look, it does deal with the subject matter, which can be absolutely horrific and gruesome. Very, very well and very, very lighthearted. Look, yeah, there's a guy who cuts people up and, stuffs their bodies and has them all around his house, but, oh, what a character, seriously.
But isn't David Spader's character funny?
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, he's charming, he's classy, and he's...
wears the hell out of a suit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he talks like James Spader, so yeah.
He's always one step ahead of everyone else as well, which is nice. You sort of like watching that whole, what's the word, Limitless type show where the guy's just thinking ahead of everyone and he's well ahead of what everyone else is doing, kind of thing. He's thinking...
What kind of... I mean, that brings me to a point here. What would you... I mean, we're conscious, I guess, of spoilers on this show, but what was your favorite?
We're really not.
Or your favorite, like, thing that he said or scene featuring him just chewing the scenery?
So there's this, I think it's the first or second episode. I think it's the first episode of season 3. So I'm sorry, spoilers, you guys. But there's a scene where Raymond and FBI agent thingy Lizzie, yep, are in a car. They're running away from the FBI, or is it the CIA? I don't know. It's some. They're running away. They're in the car, and they enter this tunnel. And everyone's like, oh, we can totally see them. We've got a helicopter. Yeah, they enter the tunnel, and then they say, oh, we'll just look at the other side. They don't come out the other side, and they're like, okay, we'll drive some cop cars in there. And they're not in there. And it's like, what? Anyway, they look at the footage like 3 times, and they were actually trailing a one of those trucks that carries cars on the back. And in the tunnel, they got the car, drove it up onto the back of the car carrier, and just drove out on the back of the car carrier. So it's like, okay, he completely slipped by. It was just so classy.
He was hiding in plain sight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very James Bond-esque move, I think. I think I've already gone over my one. That was definitely like the man comes around, the montage, and taking revenge on all the people who'd made his life difficult or whatever. What about you, Harrow? What do you reckon?
I think it's season 1 where the Cabal sent in an assassin to the FBI, to what they call it, the post office, to get Reddington, and Reddington holds himself up in the interrogation box with Wrestler, and so all hell's going off around Reddington, and Reddington's just calmly talking to Wrestler while performing emergency first aid on him. It's like, yeah, I'll save your life, but I may have to kill you tomorrow. And then eventually he did nearly come, after stitching him up, he did nearly have to kill Wrestler to get out of the box anyway. It was, just, the honor amongst thieves that he seems to bring to the character.
Yeah.
And how he's taunting, their antagonist that whole time as well. Like, he's in the box, but, yeah.
Yeah.
There was one scene in season 1, where he's gone to the house of, I think it was the guy that played Senator Phoenix, Alan Alda's character, I think, or one of the other characters who's married. He shows up at his home, and he's walked in the door. Reddington is just sitting there having a casual conversation with his wife. And he's like, oh, it's good that you're home. She's lovely. She's charming. You're fun. And, he's talking about how great the meal is going to be that they're preparing, and then pulls out a gun on them, and, it's a what the hell moment. He shoves her in the closet and says, if you don't stop screaming, I'm going to have to start shooting, and I don't think you'll like that because I won't know what I'm hitting. And then he shoots her this kind of glare that you would shoot a child if they were 3 and you were telling them off. It's just an amazing moment that he pulls off in this. That was my favorite. My wife and I laughed until we cried, I think, when we saw that one.
Yeah. He really brings it to the show. What do you guys think about some of the other characters? So, for instance, the character of Lizzie and the actress who plays her, how do you feel about her? Do you think that it's just the way the role is written that makes like her what she is, or is she bringing her own merits to it?
Look, everyone except for James Spader is fine. They're fine.
They do a great job of being there for James Spader as support.
Let's be honest, yeah.
I think, I've had this discussion with a friend of mine. I'd say that, I was saying that Lizzie is a strong female character and really good, and he's saying, well, no. And he would argue, well, no, she's not. She's nothing without Reddington. She'd be a no one without Reddington, and she provides insight, but doesn't really push the story along. Would you agree with me being strong or her being supporting?
In terms of her own accomplishments, she was an FBI agent all on her own before Reddington came along.
Yeah,
she had a successful career. She was fine. She doesn't need Reddington to be good at her job at all.
There was a moment in the comic book in that takes place between seasons 1 and 2, where she's doing some kind of training that she missed out on because Reddington recruited her, so she managed to skip through some of the last stages of basic training, and she's kind of running through this course, and there's an instructor who's telling her how much time she's got, that she has to reach a certain point and avoid being hit by like a paintball gun, and it ends with her getting up on the roof before the instructor can realize it and shooting him with the paintball gun. So they have moments like that. She's quite a strong character, and the actress, I can't remember her name at the moment. Yes, she was looking at quitting acting at one point, and this is part of what kept her going. And I think she really works hard, is really quite good on the show. It's just, I mean, James Spader is heads and shoulders above almost everyone else on this.
Yeah.
I'd say, what's his name? Harry Lennox, the guy that plays Harold Cooper. It's only a minor role. He's only playing like the overseer, the boss, but he brings it. I'd say he's not as big as Spader, but he's pretty strong.
Yeah, he does an excellent job as well. I feel like the Lizzie's character, I don't know if it's the way she's written or the way that she's acted, but I never feel as emotionally attached to her as I do to Reddington's character.
She's nowhere near as charming. I think that's the point.
Well, in part. Like, I remember, for instance, Sam Carter, Amanda Tapping on SG1. And she was so good. And despite not being in the lead role and despite, well, like, being one of the lead characters, she made...
Not headliner, yeah.
Yeah, she made me really, like, still feel very attached to her actual character within the story. I don't really feel that same way for Lizzie.
That's the interesting thing about when they were writing the season 1 of Stargate SG-1. They were absolutely horrified that the Sam character wasn't going to work because she was a brilliant physicist, a brilliant fighter, and a beautiful woman. And this is like, she's OP. No one's going to believe this is a real, relatable character. And no, that was a show of she was strong. She probably contributed more than the main character did to the pushing the story forward and contributing to the missions or the scenario or whatever. So having too strong a female lead isn't the problem.
Yeah. There's something. I feel like there's something missing in Lizzie's character, which is to the detriment of the show. If she was, no, you disagree, Bauxite?
Look, I think it's just contrast. Compared to big name James, no one else really seems to be bringing... I mean, look, they're doing perfectly good jobs acting. They've got interesting stories. They're fine. They're just not James Spader. He is clearly the center of the show. All the scenes are set up to make him look good.
I just think the universe naturally bends around James Spader. I don't think they're doing it deliberately. It's just his unearthly power doing that.
I don't know. I think they're definitely capitalizing on his star power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something intelligent to ask. Something I would like to see is now that they're... Sorry, spoiler here, Bluetongue, but now that they're on the run, I'd love to see a more of a master-apprentice thing happening between Lizzie and Raymond. Giving her the underworld context, teaching her how to survive on the run. I would love to explore more of that.
All the while corrupting her with his, like...
dark side teachings, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, I'd enjoy that. That'd be great. Yeah, that's definitely potential in that story arc.
As long as they don't spend too much on her whinging, I'm an FBI agent, I can't do this, I can't be like you. Like, no, embrace it. There's nothing wrong with him. You can be like him, you take the opportunity.
I hope they don't go too much in the other direction. I've seen this, I'm trying to think, Scandal. I don't know if you guys have seen the series Scandal. There was one character introduced in the very first season, very first episode, who basically learnt from a corrupt, this brutal torture guy who used to work for the CIA as a torture agent, basically, and they took her and made her the vicious character so that she's, essentially the heel, essentially the one that's become all vicious. I don't want to see entirely the same thing happen to Lizzie, and they've had her a little bit more kind of as a stronger character as time has gone on. But yeah, I certainly hope they don't take it to that kind of extent.
What's your thought on the Thomas Keane character? Because I'm over him and they keep bringing him back. Forget the actor's name.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like, I'm at that point in the story where he shows up and then he helps a little bit and then he disappears. He could have been really cool. He could have just been like a menacing kind of double agent style character. But what he's actually contributing to the story is, to be honest, quite disappointing.
Yeah. That was his former husband?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he served his purpose in season 1.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he would have actually...
They really should have just killed him off.
Yeah, I mean, I think they actually would have achieved more haunting in death than they would have had he lived, and that's
especially if he came back as a ghost. That would have been awesome.
Or if she just kind of, I don't know, saw him in her head.
Now, I think this was referenced in a recent episode, but correct me if I'm wrong. Reddington's character, before he went criminal mastermind, was in naval intelligence, and they spoke in a recent episode that he went criminal mastermind because the Cabal tried to pin something on him, and he's been spending all these years ever since trying to get them. Am I making that up, or is that the plot, or is that being referenced before, that the Cabal is why he turned criminal?
There was reference to the fact that he was being groomed for the Admiralty. They love harping on that.
Yeah.
So, like, that he was, like, on the fast track to being sort of one of the highest ranking military people in the US. But,
yep.
Yeah, I can see that being a potential, sort of turning reason for him, but, I don't remember it having happened in the story as yet. But that said, I'm not obviously up to the same point.
Because, if it really is just a revenge story that the Cabal screwed him and he's going after them, does that diminish the character as opposed to, say, this well-meaning, gifted, promising intelligence officer realize, hey, I can be a better bad guy than I can a good, and decides to make a go of it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm happy either way, I think. What do you guys reckon?
Oh, I don't think there's any diminishing this character. I think bulletproof might be how I describe him. I think that, you know, there's more to hear. There's more to see of him as far as where they go, as far as like his backstory, as far as filling in some more of those details. So wait and see if that's fully fleshed out. But certainly, I don't think that detracts from him.
Okay.
One other character that I thoroughly enjoy in this story is his fix-it man, who he calls Mr. Something. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
I thought you were referring to the old lady.
I thought she was a great character as well, but certainly I know
absolutely.
is that Remy? No, not Remy. I'm sorry. I was actually thinking of Remy from House of Cards, who plays a similar fix-it role. No, not at all. I think the name's eluding me at the moment, but definitely.
Let me go and grab it for us, so we can actually talk about who we're talking. So one of the most interesting things about this character is he refers to her as a Mister.
Yeah, Mr. Kaplan.
Kaplan, yeah, that's it, and she's basically his fix-it person, and whenever something bad happens, a la Breaking Bad with Mike, where Mike goes in and fixes everything, Mr. Kaplan goes in and fixes everything. Really, really interesting character, I thought. I haven't seen her yet in the second season. Does she show up again in the future?
Yeah, she was. She's in right at the beginning of season 3, I believe.
Awesome. I'm very happy to hear it. I don't know. Are there any other characters in there that you guys think are of note, worth talking about?
I can't remember the character's name, but it was his wife, or his ex-wife, who was played by the same actress that was Nancy Botwin on Weeds.
Yep.
And the name's just not occurring to me tonight. But it was simply one of those kind of filler roles. I don't think she was kind of fully fleshed out so much, but certainly just seeing her show off, seeing these kinds of actors that they've inserted into the series was kind of cool.
Yep, thoroughly agree with that. There's been some other big names that have shown up in the course of the show. Obviously Alan Alda, that we've already discussed.
The guy that's playing the director of the CIA, whose name eludes me, he's pretty...
Oh yeah, he's the guy from Alphas. Have you guys seen that?
No.
That was alright.
Yeah, it's an okay show. It's essentially X-Men in trying to being brought into real life kind of thing.
It was an attempt at what Heroes did without falling into the same traps that Heroes did.
Yeah. And he plays essentially like the handler he's actually a really nice sort of leader in that actual show. Whereas in this one, he's a very menacing villain, he does a great job, I think. It's really good.
It does. It's because in the television format they can spend more time building a character than say a movie. But yes, the director of the CIA can be this scary president, even though he's mild mannered in a suit and doesn't really move much. But yeah, he can be scary.
Yeah. The Alphas is a TV show as well. FYI. Yeah. Also worth checking out. Very solid in its own right.
I think I've said before that the Harry Lennox's character, Harold Cooper, I think is a bit underappreciated. I think he brings a lot of gravitas to his role. You're dealing with tough guys, and he's the guy that pushes them around, or he's the one that holds them accountable. Yeah, I really like that character. What that brings to the table.
One character I feel is a little bit underappreciated is Reddington's bodyguard.
Oh, Dembe.
Yeah, Dembe. He did when they go into his backstory and stuff like that. I thought that was really solid. I really enjoyed that. Again, I think it was probably told mostly from Reddington's perspective, and then you find it at the end that it's actually him that he's talking about. But that was really enjoyable.
I think that'll probably do it for us gushing over James Spader and The Blacklist. Anything else you guys want to add besides that we love you, James Spader?
Yeah.
I wanted to have a discussion about Boston Legal if we could.
Now?
Yeah. I hear that James Spader's in that. I just want to say that.
There's been have we sat down and talked about Age of Ultron yet, and some of the voice acting in that?
I don't think we have. Let's talk about how good or how perhaps disappointing James Spader was in that, given how good he otherwise is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think. Are we actually going to have that conversation?
No, we're really not.
Oh, okay.
We'll do it some other time. There'll be a good segue into talking about Age of Ultron that I have planned for the future, but not for this episode, I'm afraid.
That's a shame. Oh well. Thank you for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed yourselves as much as we have. You can catch us on Twitter at wellplayedau, and you can send us questions or comments at wellplayedau@gmail.com. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Oh, thanks guys. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.